Thank you so much, everyone. The streets of Lagos and Abuja and in so many parts of cities of the country, we're seeing protesters and SARS protesters demanding end to police brutality in the country. And tonight, we're getting a sense of what the demands and the future holds for Nigeria as one of, the voices on the streets. Sheun Kuti, Afro musician and activist, is here in our Lagos studio. Thank you so much, Sheun Kuti, for coming. And from our Abuja studio is the special assistant to the president on digital and social media, Tolu Ogunlesi, as well as a former director of military intelligence and special advisor to the Minister of Defense on technical matters, Mr. Ahmed Jibrin. In our Abuja studio. Thank you indeed. And perhaps I should get this segment of the conversation started with Mr. Jibrin. We understand Operation Crocodile Smile will begin. The question here is the fact that the army plans to commence this exercise. The question of timing of this operation comes to question. Why did the army decide to embark on that sort of idea now?
Well, it's very important for us to know that the military is always having a schedule of activities every year. Those who are keen and are following will realize that Operation Crocodile Smile started since 2016. I think since General Burate became the Chief of Army Staff, it started, and it's usually from October to December. And so this year is not going to be another year that such an activity will not take place. It's going to take place because of the SARS demonstration. Does not mean that army schedule of activities will not hold. And in the past, it used to hold usually at riverine areas of Lagos, Ondo State, and south-south areas to ostensibly check the excesses of economic saboteurs who are conducting vandalism and also creating difficulties for economic activities to thrive. This year, it takes a national outlook because of some additional components which became necessary. We're all aware that the military is already embarking on positive identification of fleeing terrorists and bandits who, owing to the heat of the battle in the areas, they are trying to filter away from the areas and to other safer areas for them. And so Operation Positive Identification is a component of this year Operation Crocodile Smile. Another important component is the aspect of cyber warfare, fighting of cyber warfare, cyber crimes is a very important component of the military is doing. There is a dedicated command for cyber warfare. So to test their activities, to test their whatever they have been doing, this year's exercise, Operation Crocodile Smile, has this as part of its component to at least ensure that our cyber environments are safe and other issues that are being reported in the media are safe for human consumption, and they are not areas where it involves the issue of fake news and hate speeches are some of the things the cyber component will check. So the Crocodile Smile is not a new thing. It's not staged this year because of the demonstration. SARS demonstration is a legitimate right. It's a legitimate right of the citizen to demonstrate if they are not comfortable with certain activities, at least to draw the attention of the government. So the Crocodile Smile will go on as scheduled, and it is not.
All right, Mr. Jibrin, apologies. Let me quickly come in here. From the statement from the military, it says that the exercise this year will focus on cybersecurity and warfare to checkmate all criminalities usually associated with the end of the year. It said this year's exercise will be more all-encompassing, and for the first time, it will involve cyber warfare. Can you explain the coincidence, considering the nature of the hashtag #EndSARS protest, which got a spirit on the internet and in the cyberspace. Is it just a coincidence?
It's just a pure coincidence. I have told you that it is a scheduled activity. And if you check the Army schedule of activities of this year, you will see that it is clearly there. And if you follow what is happening within the military, there is a cyber command that has just been established not long ago. And they have procured some equipment, they have done some courses, they have done some training, they are testing all these things to ensure that they will work when it comes. So if there is Operation Crocodile Tears, and then this aspect is factored, just to ensure that it is working fine. It is not because of the SARS riot. But I want to assure you that in the course of the Crocodile Smile, definitely anybody that decides to engage in activities that is inimical to our democratic growth, rule of law, and against our socio-economic activities, or to try in any way to disrupt the peace and security in the country, definitely the security agencies will not fold their arms and look at him. The minimum force and whatever is required to save democracy, to ensure that there is peace and security in the country, will definitely be done. But the cyber thing, I have told you, if you check very well, because most of us, we don't care to know what is happening within the military. The cyber thing is something very, very important the military has realized, and they are putting everything possible to ensure that we benefit from what comes from all this cyber engagement, so that our domain, our cyber domain, is kept secured.
All right. So let me quickly come before I go to Tolu. Sheun, what do you think of the explanation of the defense of the military on the issue of the Crocodile Smile? Because I've heard and I've seen a lot of fear from those who are protesting, say, "Oh, this is targeted at us." Do you have that opinion too?
I don't really have that opinion. I mean, I don't see unseen threats. If the government says they are not after the protesters, then they are not after the protesters. But if they come out and they're after the protesters, the world will see that they're after the protesters, right? I mean, they can't do it in secret, you know. So
he explained the coincidence.
The proof is in the pudding.
Okay.
So if the soldiers do not stop the protest, then they are not against the protest, right? If they do stop the protest, then they are against the protest, regardless of what anybody says.
But you're not backing down anytime soon on the protest.
It is not about me. This is the.
I'm talking when I say you now. I'm not saying Sheung. I'm talking about the body of the protesters that go out every day. It does not look like you guys are ready to back down.
Oh well, for me, Sheung, personally, I don't want to back down, and I think the people of Nigeria don't want to back down neither. And I'm a servant of the people, you know, and I follow the people how they want, because the people is always right. And in this protest that I've seen, you know, for me, I see an opportunity for the government to change the relationship. As I said before when I started, because now everybody is looking for representatives of the people. The people just voted representatives some few months ago, right? And why people are suddenly looking for representatives of the people, I don't understand it. It's an opportunity for them to use the same energy that they used to get these people's votes, to go back to them and talk to them, not look for representatives or things like that of the people. Nigerian people want to be heard. Nigerian people want to be taken seriously, you know, irrespective of whatever forces the government may have, you know, or whatever amount of power that they might control. You know, at the end of the day, it is the wish of the people that must carry through.
All right. Let me go to Tolu Ogunlesi, who assists and helps the president in digital media and social media. Well, you have probably seen perhaps some of the most difficult times on your job since you assume office, because the media, the social media space and the digital media space have been agog of a lot of criticism of government and institutions in the past few weeks. Tolu, the youth on the street appears not to be in sync with the efforts of the government in meeting the demands. Why the disconnect?
Thank you, Sheung. Well, I think the first thing to say is to attempt to respond to what my brother Sheung said earlier, where he said that these protests are not about the police or police reforms. And I think that quite clearly, I want to disagree with that. Quite clearly, it is a conversation about police reforms, police brutality. And when we attempt to make it sound like it is not, it is not about police reform, it seems as if we are downplaying the issue of police reform. I think there's a consensus, within government, amongst the public, amongst the populace, that there is a need to fix the police force. There's no doubt about that. There's that consensus. And I personally believe that this is the best chance that we have had in a long, long time to attempt to face this issue and to deal with it. And of course, about the 5 for 5, the demands of the protesters, which is short-term, medium-term, and long-term demands. And I think that so far government has demonstrated, quite good faith in first in accepting, in acknowledging the demands at the highest levels of government. People have spoken and said, look, we acknowledge these demands. We affirm the rights of Nigerians to agitate and to protest peacefully, and we are taking steps to meet these demands. And so if you go through the list of demands one by one, you will see that a lot of work has gone into meeting these demands. At no time in our history has police reform been on the agenda the way it is now. So this is a perfect opportunity for government and the people to come together to find a way to get this done. Short-term stuff, if you look at, the way protests tend to work is that what you would typically hope to achieve is certain short-term things. So for example, if you look at the list of demands, release arrested protesters, governors, attorneys general, government officials have been working on that, with quite a bit of success. Justice and compensation. The state at NEC, as you spoke earlier about that, the NEC has asked the states to set up judicial panels of inquiry. Governors have started that. Kaduna, Enugu, Ogun, Delta, just amongst Lagos, amongst the states that have done that. That's a medium-term thing because they have a 6-month mandate. And those things are it's very important, actually. Those judicial panels of inquiry, we must not downplay the impact or the importance, because what that does is that it gives people with legitimate grievances an opportunity to air those grievances before a panel that can actually get something done about them. So far, we've seen a lot of stories on social media. Tonight on my way here, if on WhatsApp stories, on Twitter, on Instagram, lots of heartbreaking stories of police brutality. But now, so social media has aired these things, but now is a chance with the judicial panels. This is a chance to actually get them before qualified people, judges, an independent panel that can actually listen and take action. Independent body to oversee prosecution of officers. That's also where the judicial panel of inquiry comes in, because they're going to make recommendations. And then I think one point that's important to make is that state attorneys general have the power to prosecute offending police officers. So that's the third one. Fourth one, psychological evaluation of disbanded officers. The police have spoken about that. I guess, people, of course, legitimately want to get more information. And I'm sure that in the days ahead, there will be more information, detailed information about exactly how that will happen. The police have assured that it will happen. And that none of the disbanded SARS personnel will make it into whatever will succeed SARS. The fifth one is police welfare. That's clearly a long-term thing. So it's on the 5 for 5 is the longest term item there. But even that, President Buhari last year signed the police trust fund bill. So for the first time in history, we have a police trust fund at the national level. You have security trust funds in some states, but a national level thing that will ensure that, the welfare or compensation of police officers is handled. So if you look at the 5 for 5, you can see that, quite tremendous progress has been made on all of these. And so I don't think it's fair to say that government has not done anything or is not doing anything. There is significant action. Again, it goes back to what I said, that never before has there been so much as police reform been this high on the agenda of any government since 1999.
John I see that you wanted to respond to what Tolu said.
And we want, now the next one, we want education to be higher on the agenda too. We want our housing to be higher on the agenda too. We want our transportation, our road networks to be high on the agenda too. We want our healthcare to be high on the agenda too. We want our standard of living to be high on the agenda too. So this is just a start. So this government is either in need for the long haul to make a better Nigeria, and don't tell us as if it's only police reform that they owe us, because that is what I'm hearing. Oh, we've given you police reform. Don't talk as if police brutality is not something. I, my family, with the #1 sufferer of police brutality in this country. You know, like my grandmother, my father. So we kind of understand what is going on. And there were panels for all these abuses that was meted out on my family, right? There were panels. What came off the panel? There was Oputa panel too when Obasanjo came. What came of it? They've done judicial review of judicial panel, judicial inquiry against SARS 2 years ago. What came of it? It was this same government in charge of it. What came of it? I can even remember Obasanjo that said, Oputa panel was just advisory. Doesn't have to implement anything, he says. So there's also an issue of distrust. This government should not act as if the people trust them. They should not give themselves that. They should not wear that toga for themselves. That's what I'm saying. People should not sit there in their high offices in Abuja. Bring yourself off your high horse. Come and relate with the people that just voted for you. Come and really hear what is going on. Don't look online. Don't feel victimized. Don't think there's somebody trying to get you. No, this is your people trying to talk to you. This is actually a moment that we can actually build a bridge. But they don't want to hear that. People always want to feel like, oh, somebody is against what I've earned. Somebody is against what we are. No, we are saying, okay, police reform, yeah. Now we want other things that concern us to be high on your agenda too.
All right. Let me go back to, I'm very sure that Tolu has heard that, the issue of distrust. About 8 years ago, Channels Television did a documentary on some of the rot in the training process and the training college of the Nigerian police force. That was an audacious move that a television network made in this country. We saw what happened to us. We saw what came by of that kind of effort that was being made. It's not as if we do not know the problems of this country. Channels Television, for example, has highlighted that kind of problem. So for a start, there seems to be a level of distrust.
Yeah, well, yes, yes, I agree with you that between the government and the governed, there's a trust deficit that did not start today. That is not in any way new. It has always existed, for as long as I can remember. And so, but I think the challenge before government is then to find ways to bridge that gap, to lessen that deficit. It's a long-term thing. You are not going to plug that gap in 6 months or in 1 year, but you can start somewhere. And this is where, and I think that this police reform is the perfect opportunity for government to start to demonstrate that, look, we have heard the people, we are listening to you, and we are taking steps. And so if you look at, for example, the committees, the judicial panels that have been set up in the states, one key component of it is youth involvement. Again, I don't think that we have ever had this level of youth involvement in the matter of police reform. In the first place, the NSAS protests have been led, the legitimate protests have been led by young people. So, young people have already achieved a lot, even in putting this thing high up on the agenda. Now, government is saying young people as well, you have a place in the judicial panels. You have a place, and so you can see now on social media that young people have started to have conversations about how do we get the best amongst us to go and stand in for us as on these panels, not as leaders necessarily, but just as I was listening to somebody today who used the word messengers. We're looking for young people to put up as messengers. So there are conversations about how do we do it? Do we do online voting to select people? But the most important thing is we want to have young people on these committees. Ultimately, the police reform we're going to talk about, this work is hard work. It's not going to happen on the streets. It's going to happen in committees, in offices, with engagement, people sitting down together to have conversations. I know young people don't want to hear that. I see a lot of people on social media who say, oh no, we don't want anything closed door. But look, that's how change happens in government. So the protests are good because they put things on the agenda. They compel government to deal with the quick wins. But the medium term, the long term work for lasting reform happens when people sit down to engage. And so talking about engagement, there are 5. So apart from all the other things going on,
we need to take
there's
yet
a lot of
another
work
break.
now
Just a
going
moment.
into how
So
do we
before you go
design-
into that, just a moment, and I'd like you also to point out, China Television, I said this earlier, I thought that you were going to mention it, the training of these people, because a lot of people will say, where do we get these Nigerians who have become some kind of animals in the manner in which they treat people? And so China Television went to the bottom of the matter, brought out, highlighted the training process of these of officers, and we saw that it is despicable. Things are really bad, but no government is doing anything about it. I'd like you to mention that when we come back from this break, everyone. Up next on the program, we'll take another break, and when we return, agitations continue. The demands are on the table, but when will the protest end? Let's find out. Afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. And let's get back to the conversation. Sheun Kuti, Mr. Hamadi Jibring, and Tolu Ogunlesi, the 3 of them have been talking about the NSAS protest and the way forward for Nigeria. Tolu, before we went on that break, I was telling you that China Television has summed it up that the bottom of the problem is when you have a bad teacher, go and find out how that teacher was trained. When you have a bad police, the bad cop is being trained somewhere. We've sort of brought this 8 years ago, and we foresaw what is happening presently in Nigeria, and boom, in our faces. We're seeing the effect of the neglect of what the investigation that China Television did at that time. Is this government looking into, have you been to the training college in Osun State? Have you been to the training college in Lagos to see the state of things there?
No, absolutely. Sheun, I must commend, I remember the channel's investigative piece. I must commend that, looking back now, it was a lot of foresight, into the issues of police reform. But, police welfare is just one aspect of it. It's a multifaceted thing. Police welfare, the state of police barracks, police training schools is just one aspect of a multifaceted problem. And it goes on to just make the point that I was making earlier, that this is a combination of short-term, medium-term, and long-term solutions. The issue of police welfare is clearly a long-term solution. Of course, we must start somewhere, but it is not something that you can solve, in 1 week or in 1 month or in 6 months. But you must start somewhere. And I think that if I'm not mistaken, I think the response of the government at that time to the channel's investigative piece was quite disappointing, if I'm not mistaken. But I think that quite clearly you can see from the response of this government to the issues that are coming up that there's a change, or there's a clear difference in the attitudes of the two governments. So I think that, when we talk about trust deficits and all that, these are little pointers to show that, this, as I said again, I've said it again and again, is that this is the best chance that we have in a long time to actually get these issues fixed. I was talking earlier about the police reform work. So there was a panel set up in 2018 that put together quite a comprehensive document on, at that time it was focused on SARS to a large extent, and then also on larger issues of police reform. Now that SARS has been dissolved, is now a panel on police reform generally. And so this panel has done quite a lot of work, so a lot of work on designing the police force that we want. So there are 5 technical subcommittees that have been set up. Again, I know when people out there hear technical subcommittees, they say, oh, you people have come again with committees. But look, government change, this is how government change happens. It happens when people sit together to get work done. So the 5 technical subcommittees are going to be populated by experts by technical experts. So people from not just in government, but outside government, people with expertise in various fields. And I'll just quickly give you a list of what each of those committees is going to be doing. One of it is things around human resource, capacity building for the police. Another one is about logistics, operational stuff. So that's infrastructure, communications, technology. A third one is about arrest, detention, and investigations. A fourth one is oversight and accountability. And the final one is financing, welfare, and partnerships. Now, so each of these committees is supposed to sit down and put together a work plan, you know, and a costing, a budget. So, you know, they're going to be doing foundational work, even down to things like, look, what does a police curriculum look like? What should it look like? In 2020, what should the police curriculum look like? How are we designing our police stations, you know, for comfort? How are we, so welfare, for example, how are we doing insurance for police officers? What are we doing about police pay? You know, the technology subcommittee is about, you know, what kind of technology should the 21st century police force be using? So the goal is a police force that is modern, that is responsive, that belongs to the 21st century, not a police force
Mr. Ogunlesi, yeah, I understand that. Just let me get the final thought of Mr. Jibring on this matter. And because he has worked as a director of military intelligence, give us a sense of what is happening and what are your thoughts on how to fix the police force in Nigeria with the present conversation around NSAS. Just in a minute, please.
Okay, issues have been identified already. You've done a very good job as a station to identify the aspect of training. I believe the training institutions are the cradle where the police are molded. There is need to look at the deficiencies in all their training institutions and ensure that they are given a facelift so that they serve as a modern police training school with all the necessary equipment and qualified teachers from all walks of life. So when you train them very well, they come out, you have better policing. Then the aspect of equipment, particularly communication and security equipments, because what is happening right now, the police need to be communicating with all the aspects of them that are on the road, on the street, in such a way that in each state, you have the control station should be able to communicate with all their patrol teams, and each patrol team should communicate with the other patrol teams. And they should have very good patrol vehicles maintained by the police, not by the by the police authorities, not by the police themselves. Another important aspect is the aspect of the welfare package. Recently, a new salary scale was approved for them along with other welfare package, and this needs to be implemented as soon as possible so that the police
let me allow Seun Kuti to come back into the conversation. Let me get your final thought. It doesn't look like you guys are backing down. When are we likely to see the end of the protest on the streets?
Oh, I mean, we did not predict the start of the protest. You know, so as soon as the government starts to really hear the people in terms of those things that we are demanding, in terms of good governance, in terms of bringing the things that really matter to us, you know, to the front of their own preoccupation. You know, we have a government in place and we believe that they should do the job as one of the highest paid politicians in the world. They should be some of the hardest workers for their people. You know, but we tend to have a country where the people continue to work to make things easier for those in government. And it shouldn't be that way. You know, a country should work for the benefit of the people. So what we are saying is there must be a change in the relationship between the people, the government, and our commonwealth, how it is distributed, and those that benefit from it. This is what we, the people, are saying. And this is what we've always been saying. You understand? It is not about police reform. That's not all you owe us. You owe us good schools, livable wages, high standard of living, all the quality things that you and your family members enjoy in this country. And outside of it, we at least deserve to enjoy it here.
All right. Seun Kuti, Afrobeat musician, thank you so much for coming tonight.
It's my pleasure.
Tolu Ogunlesi, Assistant to the President on digital and social media, and as well as Mr. Ahmed Jibrin, the Special Advisor to the Defense Minister on Technical Affairs. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming in tonight.